Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third snap take of the day. I know that's ridiculous, but I had a lot of trouble with that last video, and apparently the last 5 minutes had no audio. I'm not just going to re record and give you 5 minutes of audio. I'm going to instead give you an extra deck for the day. After that will be the audio that is missing. I'm just going to re record it. It's the last 5 minutes of the last video. It's all miscellaneous, not necessarily snap stuff. So if you want to learn a little bit about me, about what I think about things in the world outside of Snap, it's a really good place to listen. So hopefully you enjoy. If you love Marvel Snap, if you are trying to be competitive, if you are trying to hit infinite, this is the channel for you. We release 2 brand new decks every single day, decks that no one else is talking about yet. We beat the meta to the decks, help you get infinite, help you get those infinity tickets or borders, and help you achieve all your goals in Snap. We also have the biggest giveaway on Marvel Snap. I'm not going to tell you too much about that now, but we give away an absolute ton of season passes. So please make sure you're subbed, hit those like and comment buttons, help us out, and we will do our best to provide you the best content in the game. All right, before we get to the questions, let's look at today's deck. If you listen to the Snap Drizzles podcast that released earlier today on Marvel Snap Zone's YouTube or your favorite podcatcher, you heard myself, Wolver Thor, and W, formerly Wobelos, start talking about what we could do with the Patriot Surfer to make it really, really strong, to make it sing, to make it a really good deck. And we took the original Patriot Surfer and we talked about it and we made a few changes. The deck was running like America Chavez and a bunch of other cards. Well, instead, we tried to build it without Lad. Lad probably fits great here, right? We tried to build it without Lad because everyone doesn't have Lad, and like I'm putting Lad in everything lately. So, all right, this is our Series 3 only Patriot Surfer. What is this deck doing that is different, that is powerful, that is good? Well, it's got our standard Patriot cards, right? It's running Patriot and Mystique along with Brood, Cyclops, Wasp, the Debris, and the Ultron clones as a benefit. What is Surfer doing? Well, Surfer buffs about half the cards in the deck. It buffs Mystique or Patriot. It buffs your Brood. It buffs Dazzler. It buffs Debris, Shadow King, and Cyclops. It's a lot of synergy for Surfer. It's a lot of synergy for Patriot, right? What's Invisible Woman for? Okay, let's say you want to get that Patriot out early. You're worried about what's going to happen with it. You want Debris, but you don't want to fill up your whole board. You want to wait and see a little bit. That's a really great spot for Invisible Woman. Shadow King is great behind Invisible Woman. Invisible Woman is just a really, really strong card. What other cards synergize with both packages? Well, the main one to me is Dazzler. Dazzler is amazing if you're filling spots in the board. Ultron fundamentally usually fills every spot on the board. So if you've got Dazzler out, Ultron and Dazzler, that's a 3/8 Dazzler that you could have made bigger with a Surfer on 5. And Surfer on 5 is a perfectly viable play. One of the plays you can look to make on turn 5 is actually Invisible Woman with a Surfer behind it. If you already have Dazzler out, like for example, a play line would be if you miss 1 and 2, on turn 3 you Patriot, on turn 4, I guess you're gonna have a problem getting Dazzler out. On turn 3 you Patriot, on turn 4 you Dazzler, then on turn 5 you play Invisible Woman and Surfer with Surfer behind Invisible Woman, then you drop Ultron, fill the whole frickin' board, and once you've done that, you basically end up with a 3/10 Dazzler and just a bunch of extremely powerful Ultron bots. Debris is a great way to get into lanes for when you don't see Ultron. The one card that is the big swing card, I've tried Valkyrie here and I didn't love it. I know that Wolver Thor is trying Iron Man. I can absolutely see Iron Man here. I wanted to try Spider-Man because it gives me if they're trying to wait for their like Enchantress or Rogue, I can protect my Patriot Mystique nonsense, right? Like I can say, no. We're done here. B, it gives me a safe place for Ultron in case of nonsense like Cosmo. And C, it gives me a lane that I know exactly what math I need to win. I think all of those combos make it worth it. The central card at tying everything together here is, as always, Brood. Brood with Patriot giving +2 to 2 Broodlings is 3/10. If you add Surfer to that, Surfer makes it a 3/12. So you're adding another 6. You're making it a 3/16. That ends up great if you go Patriot, Mystique, Surfer, and Brood. Goodness gracious. and you're going to be able to just have a humongous board that way. This deck is really cool. It's one of my favorite Series 3 only decks right now. Shadow King is phenomenal in the meta, but there's a lot of room to tweak, a lot of room to change. Enjoy the deck. All right, cool. I hope you enjoyed your bonus deck for the day. I hope you're willing to give it a shot, and I hope you really like it. We are going to move on to the last page of questions. So we answered all of these other questions that are on your screen currently in the previous video. Every single question is answered. We are now here to the really miscellaneous. Arbad asks when I'm going to stop doing 2 videos a day. That's our friend Rob. He's curious about the 2 video days that we've been doing for the last few weeks. This is a 3 video day, so obviously not today. Well, next week I'm going to be out of town. And while I'm out of town, I'm going to be having my morning videos. I'm going to schedule a week of morning videos. Once we know the OTA, I can actually do that all weekend, making sure that I can keep you ahead of the meta, making sure that I talk to really great players to bring you really great decks for that whole week, but I'm not going to be doing 2-a-days. I'm planning on doing 2-a-days for most of the rest of the summer where possible because I'm a teacher and I'm off, so why not? Wolverthor, phenomenal content creator who you absolutely should check out, would like to know the meaning of life. Well, at the end of August, I'm going to be 42, so that must be the meaning. But I'm going to give you a better answer, too. I think the meaning of life is that we don't live individually. We don't live with other people. Our lives exist through other people. I truly believe that we're all in this together. We exist not just with each other, but through and because of each other. And that holistic view is fundamentally, at least my meaning to life. Wolverthor also asks, if a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? And I do not believe a woodchuck would chuck any wood because wood is their main sustenance. It's their shelter. It's a lot of how they exist. So I believe that if a woodchuck had the cognitive ability to chuck something, it would instead find wood to be something like holy and not worth throwing, or not low enough to be worth throwing. Roy, my co-host on the Snapchat podcast, asks why Final Fantasy VII is the greatest classic Square JRPG. He's teasing me because I don't very much like Final Fantasy VII. Before the pitchforks come out, let's explain why. I have the following 3 problems with the game. The original translation of the game, I think, is confusing. The PlayStation 1 translation I got at Christmas the year it came out, I think the original translation does not do the story, which is actually really strong, the justice it deserves. I also think the graphics don't serve the story, particularly the Zack and Cloud palette swap is so eye rolly that if you weren't ready to um accept the premise, you wouldn't like it. The last thing I really don't like about the game, and this is that actually the deal breaker for me, um, every character outside of their limit breaks and stats, which are whatever, all you do is hit attack or hit magic, and everyone can have the same spells, right? There's nothing to differentiate characters at all in this game outside of their personalities, obviously. But in battle, they all operate under the same basic rules. That frustrates me. I really, really, really don't enjoy that. I want characters to feel different. Final Fantasy VI, which I think is arguably the best Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy IX give each character distinct skills and classes, and those distinct skills, classes, how they use them, and what they do further develops the characters in ways that I think are really interesting. Final Fantasy VII lacks that. It also doesn't really go all the way with a job system like Final Fantasy V or whatever 12 is, which further leads me to not really enjoy the gameplay. So a story that at the time I felt is convoluted, and I think still is if you go with that original translation, and gameplay I find it interesting. I don't love the game. I did mention my 2 favorite numbered Final Fantasies, 6 and 9. I think 6 does a wonderful job of being epic, while 9, like Skies of Arcadia, does a wonderful job at catching the essence of adventure while having a really strong emotional core. Both also have the type of characterization I prefer, even if 9 does a better job of developing some of its. I guess both do an uneven job of developing their characters. The characters they do develop are really great. Genuinely, one of my guiding forces in life is Zidane or Zidane. You can pronounce it however you want. I don't really care. Zidane's you don't need a reason to help other people because you shouldn't help people. So I think both of those are stronger entries than Final Fantasy VII. I also don't think either answers the question Roy is actually asking. The greatest Square JRPG is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is an absolutely brilliant game. I could not possibly speak or think more highly of Chrono Trigger. I think it is everything you want in a JRPG. It's ridiculously ahead of its time with its on-screen encounters. It doesn't waste your time. It's only a little over 20 hours to beat. Um, Engaging battles, some that operate as puzzles, some that operate as straight battles. Um, Amazing pacing, really strong story, amazing characters. The only flaw, and it's not even a flaw if you do everything, is that a lot of the characterization in the game that happens, a lot of the things that happen in that game happen specifically with those characters in character specific side quests that are optional toward the end of the game. But if you do them, the game is an A+. And if you like any of the games that I've been talking about, there's this game that came out last year. It's an indie JRPG, and I know you're rolling your eyes when you hear that, but it's called Chained Echoes, and it's one of the best games I've ever played. It's basically, it feels like Final Fantasy VI, like Chrono Trigger, but with every modern convenience you can want in a game, and it's been patched to update that further. The story is phenomenal. The characters are unbelievable. It's full of twists and turns. By the end of the first, like it dumps you into some small different character groups before it gets the group together, and like the group coming together is one of the greatest like action sequences in a game. It is a chef's kiss beauty of a game. I could not recommend more. And lastly, as a JRPG fanatic, Roy would like to know why I haven't played the Trails of series. That's not Tales of, that's Trails of series. For those who don't know, and those who would like to know, Trails series is one long interconnected series taking place in different places with different casts. Think the MCU of JRPGs. It starts with 3 Trails in the Sky games. The first 2 have the same protagonists in one continuous story, and the third is almost like a coda to them. Then it is the Crossbell games, which is Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, in which you're basically like a special police division in a city, and you have a whole JRP adventure in that one city. It's supposed to be phenomenal. It was just translated into English over the past 2 years. Last year and this year, both were released. And then the Trails of Cold Steel game, which is probably what most people are familiar with. 1 and 2, which follow the persona model of like day to day life at a military academy, and you're in a country like this school military academy, and you end up embroiled in a war. And that war, by Trails 3 and 4, ends up becoming a giant crossover involving the Crossbell cast and the Trails in the Sky cast. There's a coda game to that series called Trails into Reverie, which released earlier this week, which I assume is why Roy asked the question. But that whole long answer in explaining what this is why I haven't played it, because it's overwhelming. There's so much of it. Would I love it? Yeah, it's 100% up my alley. This is exactly the kind of thing I like, but I'd be playing it for the next like 3 to 4. And I don't think I have time to play it for the next 3 to 4 years, especially because, I don't know, as the first question says, I'm doing a million videos a day. I'm writing 8 articles a week, and I have a podcast, and I have a full-time job, and I'm married with a child who I like to think I treat really well. So I'm doing my best here, but Trails is definitely on the bucket list. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for bearing with the technical difficulties of today, assuming you knew they happened. Thank you so much for all the support. Please, if it's not too much to ask, hit me with that like, hit me with that sub. We'll see you tomorrow morning. I've got 2 beautiful decks for you. First thing in the morning. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching. Peace.